The Center for Educational Media and the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University are proud to offer professional development to K-12 educators in Tennessee through our online video library. These videos are aligned with standards set by the Tennessee Department of Education. For more professional development videos, check out our website at cem.mtsu.edu.
Welcome back, everybody, to the SPED Collaborative Summer Academy at MTSU. We are about to hear a great final session today presented by Camille Schloop and Mary Gramer from Franklin Special School District. So, empowering special ed through collaboration, creativity, and consistency. So I will give the floor to them so they can continue their introduction. So glad you're here today.
Thank you. Thank you guys for being here. I know it's hard at the end of the day. You've been sitting and listening all day long. If you'll just hang in there, I hope you can take something positive away from this going into your school year or reinforce what you're already doing well. I'm Camille Schloop. I'm from Franklin Special District. I teach K-4 special education, mostly severe needs and autism. And this is?
I am Mary Gramer. I'm a certified occupational therapy assistant, and I am with Franklin Special District, and I have been there this is going into my 14th year. So I've done school-based therapy, and then I've also worked in a private pediatric clinic. But I've done both, kind of swapping out, and then for the past probably 7 years, I've only been in my school district. So
you've met a lot of people today. They've all had a different perspective. Our perspective is more from the school and your classroom. I began my career in education as a SPED parent. I became a special ed paraprofessional, and I worked in that role for 6 years in a self-contained classroom. And that motivated me to become an educator. I have only been teaching for 2 years, but I have a lot of different experiences, so I hope you can take something from that while we get started. So we're going to be talking about the 3 C's, and this is a framework that we use in our school that works for our team, and I hope that maybe you can take something from it. So the first thing that we'll talk about is collaboration, which you guys have been hearing about a lot today from different perspectives. Collaboration is so important because it helps create a learning environment where every student can thrive and you can thrive. And that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. Education is not getting any easier. It feels like we're all surviving sometimes. And we're going to go over some strategies and some practices that we use to try to preserve your own energy and make your classroom work for you and for your students. So the 5 elements of collaboration, we know communication, trust, shared goals, mutual respect, and accountability. Great collaboration involves all of those things, and it involves everybody doing it. Does anyone want to answer why they feel like collaboration is important? Anybody?
yeah.
Survival, that's what she said. Yes, different perspectives, different ideas. Can you say it one more time? It's what's best for our students, yes. And when our students are getting what they need, we're also fine. And we're doing our job. We're being compliant. Our kids are growing. We're happier. So we're going to talk about how we can get that to happen in your school building. And that may seem like a lot, but it just takes a little bit of change for you to be able to do that. So you guys said this. Benefits the student. That's the first bullet point on there, obviously. Enhances the understanding of student needs. Improves instruction and supports compliance and regulations for IDEA. When we are all collaborating, it ensures that we are all following the IEP, that everyone is supported, and they can't say that you're not providing something for your student. Okay, who should we collaborate with regularly? Again, top of the list, the student. We know that relationship matters. When we have students that are having challenging behaviors or something's not working for them, we should always check back in with our student first to establish either a better relationship, see what we are missing out on, instead of making it about we don't have enough support, maybe we need to change what we're doing. The student's family, your general education teachers, related service providers, paraprofessionals, love them so much, they are so important. Our administration, instructional coaches. And then what should collaboration look like in special education? I want to ask you guys what you feel like your biggest barrier is when it comes to collaborating with your team. If you'll wait to answer, and we'll get a microphone to you. Anybody? What are our barriers to being able to collaborate with our teams? Yes.
Time frames actually aligning, not necessarily just like the amount, like time, but the time frames aligning that we're actually like able to be together.
Yes, absolutely. I know that we experience that in our district. You have one?
I would say like when I go into one class with one teacher and then the rest of the time I'm not there, so she's like, what am I supposed to do when you're not in here? So like working with a gen ed teacher, and also them welcoming us in the room as an equal adult, especially as a paraprofessional, because I did that for a little bit, and sometimes they're not looked to as equals, and they should be and more. So
Yes, absolutely. Anybody else? Yes. Wait for her microphone.
Working with the other service providers that service the students, your OT, PT, SLP.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Okay, so you guys covered a lot of things that we have on here. Planning with related service providers to support the students' IEP goals, attending grade level PLCs to review data and discuss accommodations or modifications for future assessments, having a collective responsibility to educate the student. I know a lot of the time as special educators, we are looked at as the sole provider of educating our students because they're with us, and maybe that's not our role. Some teachers feel that way. Changing the narrative in your building is focusing on that collective responsibility. We are all collectively responsible for that document. We all sign the document. We are all supposed to implement the document. So what do you need to be able to do that? So that's something that we try to look at in our building to make sure that everybody is collectively responsible for that child's deficit areas, goals, and everything. Discussing strategies to maintain consistency across settings, that's a huge one. Like you said, when you leave the room, she doesn't know what to do. That's huge. That's her student. She should know what to do also. So how can we help those teachers know what they should do? Providing student-based training to help support all stakeholders. And that comes back to having time aligned to be able to do that. So I want you to hear what we're saying, and I want you to already start thinking about your next school year and what list you could make to be like, I need to reach out to this person to make sure that I end up getting what the student needs for them. Schedule a meeting, send an email, anything just to have the conversation already starting before you go back to school. Checking in with the paraprofessional, teaching new behavior strategies, reviewing the IEP and behavior data as a collaborative team. Your speech therapist can collaborate with the student's team to provide communication boards, visuals, anything that they need. This is obviously just a picture example of some of those communication cards that they can use. So collaborating with related arts team is also a huge thing. They are a part of your child's IEP. They do sign it. They go to PE, they go to music, they go to art. They should be participating in all of those activities if it's appropriate and if they have the supports, and they should. So some things that my school specifically is amazing at is getting our children involved in everything. They're included in everything. And that is so important because it benefits our students so much, and it teaches teachers who may be afraid to encourage, like have our children participate, it empowers them to be able to do it for the next student. They just need a little bit of help to do it. This is just an example of a social story from this year.
The related arts, particularly if the children are gifted in those areas, are a primary pathway for them to do the learning of reading and mathematics and other things they need to be learning through the related arts. And you actually may be giving those examples now, but I'm so glad you mentioned that today. Yes. Yeah.
So many of our kids are very gifted in the arts, in music, in theater, and if they are not provided the right support to participate in that, people will never know that. They'll never know it. And then they may not feel like they belong in their school. That's an area where they can belong. That's where you can foster inclusion. Your gen ed students can learn something from your students, always. So how can we support our students to make sure that they are able to access that? We had a field trip this year for a student who has not gone on a field trip in 4 years with a previous classroom, and we all worked together to make them a social story. We thought of everything that could happen during that field trip. Did it go perfect? No. And that's okay, because we learned from it, and he still was able to access it. He was still able to have that opportunity to where the next field trip he went on, he was great. So it's just thinking ahead of your school year to say, we know we're going here. How can I already focus on that so I don't get to the day and panic, or my gen ed teacher's nervous that they're not going to do well? It's a lot of planning. I know we don't all get that, but if you're thinking about it now, then you may be able to. So this is just an example of our amazing PE team. We do a camping unit for a whole week, and our students love it. They love to hike. They love to do the adventurous things. And for us to be able to have our students do that, we created a visual schedule with each station. We taught them how to attend that station. And it's been successful, and they do it every year. So now next year, they may not need the visual schedule. Now they might be able to just go in and they're like, I know how to kayak, or I know what this is. I know how to do my rotations. So collaborating with those PE teachers and just asking them, what are y'all doing? What is your scope and sequence? What are you going to be doing that's fun that I can help my kids participate? And all of that is so important.
I find too that once the special ed teacher reaches out at the beginning of the year to collaborate on what's your unit next week, what are you going to be doing, how can I help support my students in there, I'll be walking by Ms. Schloop's room and see the PE teachers in her room in March because she reached out in October to collaborate and then builds a relationship, and that teacher will come to her and say, hey, this next week, this is what we're going to be doing. I know you helped support us during the camping unit. This is what I'm thinking for this unit. And then that's how they're collaborating, and it's more of a team approach. So doing that in the beginning and building those relationships, it just helps your students and fosters that relationship between your team and your staff throughout the building.
Yes. Another one of those units is our roller skating unit, which puts some students with fine motor deficits on some roller skates, and it can get a little iffy, but you give them a rolly chair. Like our PE teachers know now that we can use that's an accommodate. I can give them a rolly chair and we can help push them and they can try. Having the visual checklist so they know what their routine is every time they come into the gym. We know that first I'm going to sit on the carpet. Next I take off my shoes. You're teaching them the same procedures that their peers are doing. So then they feel confident, and then you don't have to be right next to them the whole time. Then they're truly being inclusive, and that's what we want. Our physical therapist, get them involved. We had field day, and we have several students with deficits where they could not do those activities. And Ms. Grammer and our physical therapist set up an obstacle course that was more appropriate for their abilities. And they still got to participate in field day. And they were involved with the whole school. So our preschool program was doing it. Do you want to share anything else about that experience? I mean, it was so much fun to watch them be able to do something that they usually were not involved in.
Yeah, and I feel like, not that our teachers couldn't come up with this, but how great was it that myself and my PT could kind of take something off their plate. We know here's some skills that our students have been working on all year long. We know that they can do this. This will challenge them. This will be a little easier. And we'll gather all the materials, cart it out there, set it up, show how to do it. We're out there monitoring the kids, and everyone was participating. Our students with needs and without, everyone was in there participating. And I mean, the teachers loved it. They love when, you put your boots to the ground and you're out there with them, showing them. And then the next year, they're empowered and are like, oh, I remember Miss Mary showed us how we could do this obstacle course. So if it's raining, let's go to the sensory room and we'll make a little obstacle course. So that was a way that we could help collaborate and share some of our expertise with our pre-K team.
Yeah. So how can you guys achieve this in your school setting? You guys have access to the PowerPoint. This is just a little list, but we'll go over in more detail. We love the word norms, creating norms. I have norms on my IEP agendas. We have norms for a PLC. So establishing those norms with your team helps us maintain focus on your students' needs. It makes you communicate with your team. It empowers people to share their opinion of how your team should be operating and what you need from your PE teachers or your gen ed teachers or your admin. Being vocal and saying, like, I don't think that this system works for us. We're not all getting what we need. So just feel empowered to do that. I know it's hard to do that when you're just being bogged down by so many things that you have to do. Find your voice to do that because it will benefit you later. And then you'll feel like, oh, I did make a change with this. And my students are benefiting from it, which is great. Our norms, we have ask and welcome questions for clarification. We want everyone to be able to be curious about what we're asking them to do. We want to educate them. We're all educators. And we never stop learning. I want someone to tell me what I could fix. So just foster that mentality on your team so you're not all just feeling like we're surviving. Everyone mentioned surviving at the beginning of this, and I really want you to leave here feeling empowered instead. To do something for yourself to make you enjoy your job more, because we all love it, but there are times where it is hard to love it. So I just hope that this at least helps you feel a little bit more empowered when you go into your school year. Defining and delegating roles. I'm not going to read all these to you because we know what they are and you have access to them, but your student has a role on their IEP team. We want to empower our students to know what their role is. Your parents, the gen ed teacher, letting them know that, yes, they are the expert on gen ed curriculum. We want to go to them to say, how can I incorporate these accommodations with your lesson next week? And that will make them feel like, oh, well, next time I know that this is how we do it. So they start helping you, and then you are being a collaborative team. You're the expert on the deficit areas, the student strengths, their learning styles, their IEP goals. Let the teachers come talk to you about that. Explain your process to them and how you get your students to work on their skills. Related service providers, we have a lot of them and they are amazing. They have so many specialized skills that they have and just knowledge of how to support your students. So always collaborate with them. And then your paraprofessional, they are the expert in the gen ed classroom implementing those accommodations and just following the behavior supports and everything under the direct guidance of the special ed teacher, but they should feel empowered that they know what they are supposed to be doing in gen ed. Your admin should be the expert on your district, the school policies, the law, and supporting you and making sure that you have what you need. And if you don't feel like you have that, say it. I know curriculum's hard. Say that you need something different. And you may not get it, but you know that you tried to say it.
Okay, so I'll speak more on this. So creativity. So this is thinking outside the box. We do this every day in our professions, but I'll kind of speak on how creativity would play into collaborating with different team members. So your related service providers can creatively collaborate with your IEP team members to meet your student needs and foster consistency across the setting. So don't be afraid to reach out to your OT, your PT, your SLP. You should, so that everyone is on the same page so that your student can meet their goal. I don't want a teacher to think that what this student does in OT only happens in OT. So I want to have what happens in OT happen throughout my student's day. So that's where your collaboration comes into play. So this starts by sharing your information at IEP meetings. But then it continues after that. So demonstrating use of assistive technology. Your OT, your PT, your SLP should be the expert in the assistive technology that's being assigned to that student. So that's who you need to go to, or set up collaboration with your OT and the gen ed teacher, help bridge that gap between them. I know there's usually a big breakdown in that. So I love to collaborate with the paras that are supporting the student. So I'll find time to meet with them, demonstrate use of adaptive paper for the student, and empower them to then show the teacher how this needs to happen during the writing block for that student. Providing feedback for classroom supports. I have teachers constantly reaching out about fine motor tasks. What should they include in them? And I love seeing what their ideas are and then helping give additional ideas for those boxes. Sensory is a huge area for all of our students. So OT is there to help support their sensory needs. Adaptations for PE. Your PT would be your go-to for that. The communication visuals, just making sure that those are being used across settings. So specifically some OT supports, I'm sure you guys see this in your district. It could include the fine motor boxes, handwriting supports and strategies, adaptive equipment, especially for like positioning. It might be that the student requires a slant board during writing, but then they also might need to be in a stander using the slant board. So you might have your PT and your OT working together. Sensory supports. You know, we don't just want to throw a vest on a student, so definitely reach out to your OT about those supports. They should help you with a schedule when a student needs it, when they don't need it. Also collecting data on how it's working and helping the student, how it's not. That's important when you're collaborating. Cutting supports. Something with my students is they might have to use a specific type of scissors, and if they have that specific type of scissors, they can cut. If they don't, they might just be sitting back in the room not cutting, and then if the teacher doesn't know that they need those specific scissors and they can do it independently, that's a huge breakdown. So I'm pushing into classrooms and showing how to use supports all the time. I'm sure you guys have seen these. These are some supports that might be set up in the classroom during handwriting block or sensory block. So yeah, not only is this going to support their fine motor skills, but we're looking at all the areas encompassing the student. So language, problem solving, sensory input, independent skills, stamina for work tasks when they're in a special ed classroom. These are just some supports specific that I set up for a student during fine motor stations.
And I wanted to say, she's amazing at coming up with these very creative tasks, but that creativity is so important because some of these students may not want to sit and do this specific academic activity, but having access and having the creativity of these fine motor activities might get your student to sit down and work. It may not be one of their IEP goals to learn, they should be working on letters, but if they can't even sit still, they might sit still if they have something creative, engaging like this to do. And it gives you an opportunity to sit and just be with them and expand that language and get them to see that not all learning is just sitting and doing letters and discrete trial and everything. So I love that she is so creative with her tasks, because then I implement them in my classroom in my task box area. If it's something she has taught them in OT, I will have one in my room. So I know they know how to do the activity, and that if at the very least that day I need them to sit and do their task boxes and be on task, I'm going to choose something that she was creative with and that I know they're engaged with.
Yeah, so these are simple, low-tech things. This is cardboard and pipe cleaners and little pony beads. And you can use it for color identification. You can do sorting. You can do patterns, or just a simple, we're going to just get the task done. You're just going to put 5 on and then you're done. So it's important that we are educating our team members on the students' individualized needs and how we can support them across settings, which is going to ensure consistency for that student. These are some sensory supports that were set up. So if we have students who need to be taking sensory breaks, we definitely want to empower whoever the staff member is that's supporting that student during their breaks with what they need to be doing, because we don't want to just send someone off for a break to a room and then they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. So your OT can help set up what your activities are. So this comes from a program and it's cited on here, which is called Sensational Brain Work. So it's developed by an OT and it will give you the pictures for alerting activities, calming activities, your just right activities. And then Ms. Sloop uses a program to help her students with their emotional regulation. So we kind of bridge the two together to help meet their needs. Again, someone I love to collaborate with is my autism consultant in my district. She's amazing, but if there's ever a behavior, something that maybe Ms. Sloop and I are struggling with, we'll reach out to our autism consultant and just get another professional in there, another set of eyes, just to help our student reach their goals. So this one, the picture on the right, this student just had such a hard time with even just sitting and completing work. So I knew there were things that he could do in an OT session, but it wasn't carrying over and he wasn't doing it in his special education setting. So she helped us come up with like a first, next, then visual support. And so he could do that in my session and then he would do it in the special education setting. And it helped tremendously just to get him to complete activities and listen to adult directives. And then the other one is just a student who I've pushed into a pre-K classroom and I'm demonstrating how that student can cut. They just need to be using adaptive scissors, and I make sure that those scissors are set up in his classroom. So just another way that your OT can collaborate with team members in your building. Okay, so something that we do besides just working with our students directly, like in treatment sessions, is we want to educate our district. So we do professional developments. I would say our OT team probably does it at least once a year, like on our district-wide professional development days. So if that's not happening in your district, don't be scared to reach out to your director of special education and ask if that's something that could be set up. I know that we get good feedback from those when we present. They'll send out surveys and ask our teachers what they want information on. So it may be sensory, it may be handwriting. We've done that. That's a great way to collaborate. Something that I've started doing is, as an OT, it's hard for us. We talked about this earlier, like your time frame's not lining up. So a gen ed teacher has her planning. Maybe during that planning, I have sessions back to back with students and I have groups. So I'm not able to go to that teacher during her planning. So I'll create a form, a Google form, and that's a great way for me to send it to that teacher. I can ask specific questions related to that student, and they can do that as it works for them, and submit their input, and it comes right back to me. So that's a good way. It doesn't always have to be face-to-face. I think that's something you can get creative with how you're reaching out to your team members. So Google Forms, we use Google in our district. That's a great way for us to communicate, email, obviously. So that's another thing that we do when it comes to collaborating. So this is just from like one of our district-wide professional developments. We keep it fun, hands-on, And then my other pictures is a student who's in a stander, and they're using like a universal cuff to participate. And so I'm pushing into a pre-K classroom and I'm demonstrating to the assistants in the classroom and the teacher how that student can participate, even with their limitations, how they can still be a part of the classroom. So just empowering people, that's what I love about my job as a CODA. So.
And that picture of the fuzzy, that one, I loved seeing after our OT team presented this professional development. I looked in our first grade hallway and I saw that they actually implemented this craft into their classroom, their gen ed classroom, when they were working on the moon. So I was like, did you get that from the PD? And they said yes. So, because we had a lot of gen ed teachers attend that OT professional development. So it's giving them an opportunity for not just special educators to be at these professional developments. We want more gen ed teachers to be there as well, so they can also do everything that we do. Okay. All right, our last area is consistency. And this is probably, I find, the hardest thing to do in your classroom, because you're go, go, go. You've got maybe 5 different paras working in different areas. Personalities are different. Kids behave differently with different people. So consistency is an area that we really focus on, just to be able to foster that independence, growth, equity, fidelity, accountability across team members. Let's see. Okay, so consistency sets them up for success. Planning activities, tasks based on the student's cognitive and fine motor development ensures access, engagement, and development of skills. So making sure that you're consistent in what you're asking your students to do, that it is something they physically can do, that they understand, so you're not just sitting here thinking that a student's refusing to do work. You're actually planning activities that is on their level. And making sure that when they're in the gen ed classroom, that the activities that they're expecting them to do are actually appropriate for them. There's a lot of times where we'll have a para push in and they're like, they're wanting them to write on this tiny paper. That's where your OT comes in. Let's get adaptive paper in there for them so they can participate. Or do they need to verbally tell you? Like those accommodations, making sure that we're consistently providing them, and that the gen ed teacher, the para, everyone is aware of what those accommodations mean and how to use them. Empowering your paraprofessionals to know how to do data collection in gen ed. I have clipboards that I pass out to my paras that are in their gen ed classroom. I use Google Forms and QR codes. I try to give them as many tangible and easy ways for them to collect data for me when they're in gen ed, because we're not in there. We don't get to see it. And I want them to feel empowered to tell me what they observed of the students, so then I'm more aware of what I need to help them with or what they're doing well. Teaching them how to do discrete trials in your room. I would not have survived without a parapro in my classroom this year. I had a lot of students and they needed to know how to work the systems that I had in place in my classroom. So my paraprofessionals are trained and they know how to do the same thing that I'm doing when I'm not there. Not being at work is the most stressful thing sometimes, because you're leaving a para in your classroom with all of your students. You're like, how are you going to survive? Creating these systems and actually showing your parapros how to do it empowers them to take the lead when you're not there, and then your students are better off. They feel safe, they feel like their routine is the same, and it helps you because you come back and you're like, you did everything. And it teaches them that you are not the person that makes them work. You are just the teacher in the room. They work because that's what they're being asked to do, not because you're there. And that's very hard to address sometimes. Just give me a raised hand. Do you know if your school has paraprofessional expectations that are given to the paraprofessional and reviewed with? Okay, yes. All right, that was only like 4 hands. That's something, as when I was a paraprofessional, my school very luckily did that. They held us accountable. They wanted to hear how we felt about our job, and they listened to us. And that was the best feeling in the world. And you know what? No one wants to leave that school because they know that they have a voice, that they are being trained on how to do their job. And that's something that I feel like a lot of schools forget to do. They just hire a teacher's aide or a paraprofessional and they're like, this is what you're doing. You're pushing into this class. but giving them a voice and letting them say, like, this really is not working for me, and helping them understand their role and know what they're supposed to be doing. So this is just an example of teacher and para responsibilities and roles, and just going over that with them before school starts, asking them if they have questions, giving them resources. There's so many resources that paras could watch. And yes, some of them may not want to, but you're giving them the opportunity to if they want to. Talked about teaching classroom systems and procedures. Whether you're a resource teacher or a self-contained teacher, your classroom should have a system. Your students should know when they walk in, this is what I'm doing. When they know that, then your day just goes so much better, and your parapros know what to expect, and it just helps ease that anxiety, and they feel safer in your classroom. Visually providing classroom expectations and reviewing them. Reteaching expectations. That's something that I know we hit probably about March, and we're all getting ready for TCAP and everything else, and everyone's like, these kids are all, they're starting to lose it. I'm like, reteach the expectation. I need a reminder that I need to focus on this. So just making sure that parapros know that we might have to reteach a skill to someone. After every break, you should always reteach them, but there might be a time, they've come back, they've followed the expectation, and suddenly they're not doing anymore. Reteach it. This is just an example of some visuals in my classroom, making sure that your expectations and visuals work for your student. I might think that this one's cute, and I might want to use this one, but if I have a student who cannot read or they don't understand the visuals, they may need their own version of it. That individualized piece is so important, because then they'll use it with independence, and that's what we want. We know all those. These are just some pictures of different visuals in my room, and they're all very different and unique. The prompting hierarchy, that's a huge one. I think a lot of paras are not educated enough on prompting and what that means. So making sure that you're posting visuals of what that is. I've got some here. There's so many different visuals out there that you can use to teach your paras that this student needs this level of prompting. This goal is written with this amount of prompting. So when they're giving data collection, they're not prompting them through it and saying, well, they did it this day. You're like, but how did you prompt them? And they're like, oh, well, I showed them this. That's not what the goal says. Making sure they understand how the goal is written. Wait time. These are just some areas that I feel like get forgotten when the school year starts, making sure everyone knows that you should give them wait time. Let's see. Yes, ensuring that the student's able to experience an appropriate amount of struggle before beginning the prompting hierarchy. All of those things I feel like do not get spoken about enough. We jump to help our kids because we want them to feel successful. We don't want them frustrated, but they need to struggle a little bit. They do, and the paras need to know what that looks like. They need to know the fine line. There's a very fine line, and it can change frequently, but just making sure that they understand what that is so it's consistent across settings. Let's see. Intervening too early can create learned helplessness and leads to reinforcement of undesirable behaviors. That's a huge one. These are just some examples of work systems in my room. When I'm absent, I can put up on my Google slide what they are supposed to be doing, and they just go do it. It took a lot of work to do that, and that's why I'm trying to encourage you that when you go back to school, think about that, because then you can get to March and you're like, wow, look at them. They're all just sitting and doing exactly what I was teaching them to do. And that, it's a good feeling, and it makes you go, okay, like this is fine. Your parapros start to notice, they're like, hold on, nothing's happened yet. So just making sure that you take the time to plan for it, and it can happen. And it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to happen every day, but just having different systems set up in your room. Fine Motor Friday. This is where I collaborate with her on fine motor activities that I can have. They do rotations at my table. They look forward to it. They're engaged in it because they know it only happens once a week for that. Changing out your task boxes to be something that is of their interest. Teaching the skills of following directions. I have a lot of students who will forget to write their name every single time on their paper. So I need to teach them that. Having the visual on the table is just one way that you can do that. I have a student who can read without the pictures. So I have, for one student, the visuals. The worksheets tell you what you need to do, and I have all of their supplies ready, and then I walk away and I collect data on whether they are reading the direction, whether they are accurately doing what I asked them to do, and giving them something that obviously they've had mastered, so you can see whether they're following the direction, so you know that if their work avoidance or their off-task behavior is related to the context, or if it's because they don't know the procedure. A lot of the times our kids are not in the classroom when they go over procedures. So teaching that in your setting will help them be successful in all their settings. Let's see. Having your expectation listed across your room. Every one of my areas in my classroom has an I can statement, and it tells them what they need to do. Teaching your paraprofessionals that when you witness them not following those expectations, that is a teachable moment. That is when you intervene, you show them the visual, you read the statement to them so they know this area is designated for this. So then they start to learn that, and then your behaviors decrease. Okay, so we have just found that using this framework does ensure that your student's environment is conducive to learning and growth through collaboration, creativity, and consistency. Obviously, our rooms are all different, but I do hope that you guys got something out of this that you can use or just motivates you to do something different next year. Anybody have any questions? Anything? We do have a QR code that if you would like to, I would love if you did. Fill it out. It's on the PowerPoint. If you have questions about anything we talked about, or you want access to something that we posted, or questions or comments about what we could do better to support you, then please reach out to us because we would be very happy to help you. Yes.
I have a comment. First of all, I particularly like your section on consistency so that everyone who's engaging with the child is using the same kinds of communications. But so many of your examples in this presentation, like many things, are great for children who are not in special education. You know, they're just great teaching tools.
And that collaboration with your gen ed teacher can kind of show them that also, that we're not really working on different things. We're all trying to teach our kids how to be at school and how to show their potential, you know.
I did love the photos, though. Good examples. Well, this was full of good ideas, and so Ms. Schloop and Ms. Gramer, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you sharing us what's happening in Franklin Special. Good job. Good job.